Welcome back. The Silent Paws and Brave Hearts. The puppy should not have been out there. Not in that storm. Not alone. Jackson saw it the moment he stepped onto his porch, a tiny brown shape stumbling through the snow, barely visible against the white, falling and rising and falling again. For a half second he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Then the shape let out a sound, not quite a bark, more like a scream, the kind of sound that grabs something deep in your chest and squeezes. Jackson Hunter had served 15 years as a Navy SEAL. He had heard men scream in places the world would never know about. He had learned over those 15 years to keep his emotions locked behind a wall so thick and so high that most people who met him assumed he simply did not feel things the way others did. They were wrong. He felt everything. He had just learned to be very quiet about it. But that sound from the little dog cut straight through every wall he had ever built. "Rex," he said quietly. The German Shepherd was already at his side, ears forward, body rigid, eyes locked on the struggling shape in the snow. Rex had served 6 years in active military operations before retiring alongside Jackson. He did not need to be told twice about anything. He never had. Jackson pulled his jacket tighter and walked down the porch steps into the storm. The wind hit him like a fist. The temperature had dropped another 4 degrees since morning, and the snow was no longer falling so much as driving sideways, sharp and relentless. Jackson lowered his head and pushed forward, Rex moving like a dark shadow beside him, silent and deliberate. The puppy saw them coming and did something Jackson did not expect. Instead of running away, it ran toward them. It stumbled twice in the deep snow, caught itself and kept coming, its small legs working furiously. When it finally reached Jackson, it threw itself against his boots and looked up at him with dark, desperate eyes, barking in a way that carried no aggression whatsoever, only urgency, only fear, only a plea. Jackson crouched down slowly, letting the puppy smell his hand before he touched it. "Hey, little guy," he said softly. "What's wrong? What happened to you?" The puppy licked his fingers once, then turned and took 3 steps back through the snow, stopped and looked at him. Then it barked again, short, sharp, insistent. Jackson looked at Rex. Rex was already watching the direction the puppy had come from, nose working, something shifting in his posture that Jackson recognized immediately. In the field, that shift had always meant the same thing. Someone needs help. Someone is running out of time. "All right," Jackson murmured. "Show me." They followed the puppy into the storm. The trees closed in around them as they moved deeper into the property's edge, where the land rolled down toward the old creek bed. Jackson had walked this ground hundreds of times since buying the property 3 years ago, after leaving the service. He had chosen this place specifically because it was far from everything, because the silence here was the good kind, the kind that healed rather than haunted. But today, the silence was buried under the howl of the wind, and every familiar landmark had been swallowed by white. The puppy kept moving, kept glancing back, kept pushing forward with a bravery that Jackson found himself genuinely moved by. It was perhaps 8 weeks old, maybe less. Its paws were soaked through, and its whole body shook visibly, and still it did not stop. Rex stayed close to Jackson's left side, occasionally glancing up at him the way he always did in uncertain terrain, checking in, making sure they were still together. "I see it, buddy," Jackson said quietly, and Rex turned his gaze forward again. Then the puppy stopped. It stopped at the base of a large oak tree where the snow had drifted deep and heavy, piled up against the roots in a thick frozen mound. The puppy began to dig frantically, its small paws scratching at the surface, whimpering in a way that broke something open in Jackson's chest.
He almost missed it. The mound looked like every other drift around it, but then he saw the faint depression, the subtle irregularity in the surface, and he dropped to one knee and pressed his palm flat against the snow. Beneath his hand, impossibly faint, he felt something, a tremor, a breath, so shallow it was almost nothing at all. "No," Jackson whispered.
He turned to Rex. "Stay with her," he said, meaning the puppy. Then he was on his feet and running back toward the house. He returned in under 4 minutes with a shovel and 2 thick wool blankets tucked under his arm. Rex had not moved. He was standing over the puppy like a wall, sheltering it from the wind with his own body. The puppy had pressed itself against Rex's front legs and stopped shaking quite so violently. Jackson drove the shovel into the snow and began to dig. He worked fast, the way he had been trained to work under pressure, the way his body remembered even when his mind was elsewhere. The cold bit at his fingers. His breath came hard and fast. He could feel the sweat forming under his jacket despite the temperature. He did not slow down. He had learned a long time ago that when a life was in the balance, the only thing that mattered was the next movement and the one after that. Rex moved in beside him, pawing away the loose ice and snow with focused, powerful strokes. The puppy circled them both, too frightened to be still, too determined to run away. "Almost there," Jackson muttered, though he was not sure who he was talking to. Then the shovel hit something soft, and he stopped immediately, going to his knees and using his hands from that point forward. Gently, carefully, he cleared the last of the snow away and found her. A medium-sized dog, brown and white, her fur matted and frozen, her eyes closed, her sides barely rising and falling with each labored breath. A mother. Jackson could tell by the way her body looked, by something in her face that spoke of exhaustion deeper than cold alone could cause. She had fought hard to stay alive. She had simply run out of strength. For a moment, Jackson could not speak. He had seen hard things. He had knelt beside fallen soldiers in places so remote that no help was coming, and all he could do was hold someone's hand and speak quietly until the end. He had carried grief in his body for years, like a stone he could not put down. But there was something about this that reached a place in him that armor could not protect.
"I've got you," he said finally, his voice rough. "I've got you now. You're not alone." Rex leaned forward and pressed his nose gently against the mother dog's face. She did not react at first. Then her nose twitched, just barely. Her tail moved once, a single slow drag through the snow, and Jackson pressed his lips together hard and breathed through his nose for a moment before continuing. He slid his arms beneath her and lifted her slowly, holding her against his chest, feeling the terrifying lightness of her body, the shallow rattle of each breath. He carried her the way he had once carried a wounded teammate out of a mountain pass in the dark, with every ounce of steadiness he had left. Rex walked beside him the whole way back, and the puppy followed at their heels, quiet now, as though it understood that the crisis had shifted, and the most important thing was to stay close and let the humans work. Inside the house, Jackson laid the mother dog on the thick rug in front of the fireplace and covered her with the wool blankets, tucking them carefully around her shaking body. He got warm water and a dropper and coaxed small amounts of liquid into her while Rex lay beside her, his great body pressed against hers, lending her his warmth the way only an animal who trusts completely can do. The puppy curled against its mother's belly and closed its eyes. Jackson sat on the floor with his back against the couch, his hands resting on his knees, and watched the firelight move across the 2 small dogs. His eyes were wet. He did not wipe them. He sat there for a long time. Rex eventually lifted his head and rested his chin on Jackson's knee, and Jackson put his hand on Rex's neck without thinking, the way you reach for something solid when the ground has shifted beneath you. "We got her, buddy," Jackson said quietly. "We got her in time." Rex exhaled slowly, a long, deep breath, and closed his eyes. By morning, the mother dog had lifted her head on her own.
By the afternoon, she had accepted food from Jackson's hand, her dark eyes watching him with an expression that needed no translation. The puppy had not left her side except to follow Jackson to the kitchen and back, its small tail moving constantly, its whole body expressing a joy too large to contain. Jackson watched them together and felt something in his chest that he had not felt in a very long time. Not the satisfaction of a mission completed, though it was something like that. More like the particular peace that comes when you realize that you were exactly where you were supposed to be, doing exactly what you were supposed to do at the exact moment it mattered most. He had not planned to have more dogs. He had not planned a lot of things that had turned out to be the most important parts of his life. He looked at Rex, who was watching the mother and puppy with calm, quiet pride, and smiled for the first time in what felt like a long time. "Looks like we have a family," he said. Rex thumped his tail once against the floor. That was enough. What is the value in this story? This story carries real and lasting lessons beneath its emotional surface. First, it shows that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. The puppy was terrified, freezing, and exhausted, yet it did not give up on its mother. Second, it illustrates the importance of compassion without hesitation. Jackson did not calculate the cost or the inconvenience. He simply responded to a living creature in need. Third, it speaks to the healing power of purpose. For veterans and others who carry invisible wounds, moments of meaningful action, however small, can restore something that years of distance cannot. Finally, it reminds us that loyalty, whether between humans or animals, is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It does not require words, it simply shows up, especially in the storm.